sharks in the pool. That is not cool. I need the tool. Take me to school. Feet first into this league. Me first. That cannot be. Under the underdog Monica G. Feeling a whole lot better suddenly. I get in with it. Winning again. You're 1 and 2 in the bag and I'm going for 3. That is the beat down. God of the best so I keep. Now y'all treading water for weeks. Now I'm the shark so I eat. Now look, I am not sorry. I understood the pump from which I started. And navigating these drafts is cathartic. So thanks for the invite to party. Yeah. Dynasty underdog bite down. Up at the day and the night. Now easy as flying a kite. Now come take a look at it right now. Dynasty underdog bite down. Up at the day and the night. Now easy as flying a kite. Now come take a look at it right now.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 157, Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins, joined tonight Billy Beeman, and it's officially preseason. What's up, man?
Not much. Hey, my team Patriots getting going tonight. So hey, this is a great time for me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, those Houston uniforms look pretty sweet.
They're not bad. They're
not
right.
bad, right? I mean, it's Houston, but still. I was like, oh, that kind of looks kind of slick. Yeah.
You see CJ Stroud throw an interception there?
No, but you know, what are you gonna do?
It's preseason, I guess. This is when you got to get the kinks out, right? This
it happens,
is the time to do it.
You know, the worst thing is training camp interceptions. It's like, come on, come on.
I mean, it's interesting. These kind of things definitely can impact dynasty value. So, I don't know if this one necessarily will impact his value enough to go buy low or anything. But, you see him do this again in another preseason game and people might start wanting to sell off, So there could be some opportunity there. Just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, it's true. I got a text from one of my buddies. It's way off topic, but who cares? I got a text from my buddies down in California that I used to work with. We call him Jaybird. He's like the shop father, He's like wants to be retired 5 years ago, but still has like 10 years left, and he's just like there. It's too good of a job to leave, and his family's there. But he's huge into football, so he always texts me, even though I've been gone for almost 2 years now. And he was like, "Hey, are you worried about Dak Prescott?" He's like, "There's a lot of concerns about him throwing interceptions in practice and all." So I was like, okay, yeah, he threw 3 in one day, but he's thrown like 7 total and like 47 touchdowns. Like, it's preseason, guy. Like, I'm not concerned. But like, he pretty much only consumes like mainstream sports media. So I was like, yeah, if he throws 3 touchdowns, the Dallas Cowboys quarterback's going to get some play on TV, for that. So
absolutely.
I'm not concerned.
Yeah, he's going to be on First Take for sure, one way or another.
I know.
But if that's what you're consuming, then you're going to have a warped kind of view of what's going on, right? That's just how it goes. But yeah, man, it's preseason. It's the hype. It's camp hype. We're actually going to talk about some of it tonight with Jalen Tolbert. He's getting kind of a little buzz. We have Demario Douglas, a guy probably most people haven't heard of on the Patriots. Very timely for the first preseason game for them. So yeah, we got some fun stuff to talk about tonight related to some of the hype coming out.
Let's hop into it. So real quickly, we're just going to say that none of the free agent running backs have been signed except for Melvin Gordon, which we might have talked about last week because we had that really iffy trade offer that was sent to me. And
I don't know if we talked about him signing.
Well, Joe
we did. We did. You're right. We did.
And but yeah, we had Dalvin Cook watch there. Was he going to sign with the Jets? He's going to sign with the Colts. He's been all over the board, but none of them have been signed. So we still wait. We still have Dalvin Cook, Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, and that's basically it, ready to go. Jonathan Taylor's holding out. Dobbins is holding out. Stuff like this that we got to keep an eye on, but it probably all in the end of the day doesn't really mean much.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I do think like people are touting Zeke and Fournette as good picks, like late and underdog, which kind of makes me think that they might be good dynasty buys for contenders for cheap right now before they sign, because it's been a long time now that they haven't signed, and I'm sure people are like, what the hell? Like, I just want to get out of this asset at this point, So I guarantee you could send like a, decent third at somebody and they'd give you either one of those guys. And, I mean, Leonard Fournette could have some usability. He could have some value if he's behind like a Ramondre Stevenson or something all year,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those 3 players, they're going to go play somewhere. They're going to score points. I mean, not like they did 3 years ago, but they're still going to be somewhat valuable. They're going to mess up some sort of backfield, though.
That's a great way to say it. They're going to screw something up.
Right? Like I'm not afraid to roster any of them if I'm contending.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
On now, Sky Moore. So saw reports where someone's tracking all the 2 wide receiver sets coming out of Kansas City. MVS is obviously, quote unquote, like, the wide receiver 1 there. But when there was 2 wide receiver sets, Sky Moore was in like always the second wide receiver. So as a Sky Moore truther, I'm very happy to see this. But like, I think this is very, very real. You're seeing them use it. And Sky Moore's a good player. So to see that they're using him when it's only 2 wide receivers out on the field, like pretty much all the time, I think it's something to take note of. And if there's people who are like, man, I've been waiting for camp hype to get out on Sky Moore because he had such a lackluster season right now. I'm on the other side saying, buy the dip. Because the team, they want to use him. And this may come back to bite me, but like I truly feel like when you see something like that with such a dynamic offense, with such a elite quarterback, you kind of want that second wide receiver on that team. And it seems like it's going to be Sky Moore.
Uriah's like, keep it quiet. I want to buy the dip. I don't want the price to go up. I mean, while Rashee Rice is getting the hype, and I think he had a little like hamstring thing or something like that, which could give Sky Moore some life. Like you got it. If you are in on these guys still, you do want to get ahead of it, and they're cheap enough to where like I feel like you can buy these kind of dips. So yeah, I mean you don't want to wait until preseason week 3 where Sky Moore has had like 100 yards in a game, and you're just like, well, there goes the dip. So I mean,
we see it all the time.
Yeah, there's definitely, you can argue how much upside Sky Moore has, and I definitely wouldn't pay a ton for him or anything like that. Nope. Because I think Justin Ross could be the guy. I think MVS could be the guy. It's going to be one of these guys any given week. If Sky Moore hits, he'll have a higher floor than most because he's going to be playing a role that is going to be targeted slightly at a slightly higher volume out of the slot, most likely, right? So,
yeah.
There will be a floor there. I don't know if he'll have like the upside that some of the other guys have, even like an MVS on a weekly basis, but do with that what you will.
Cool. Jalen Tolbert is alive. So honestly, I mean, so here's the thing.
Headline coming across the scroll. Jalen Tolbert is alive.
So here's the thing. Once upon a time, we used to realize that wide receivers break out either late in their second year or the third season, and we used to give them a little bit of time to, like, I don't know, marinate and grow and become NFL players. But then we found out through your research that investing in year 1 face plants, quote unquote, wide receivers is just like not a very good option. So I think the Dynasty community is getting a little bit smarter in getting off on these guys sooner, which is probably the thing. But like, I'm a sucker, right? Like I'm with the girl I was with, when I was 18. It's 20 years ago. It's our anniversary today, by the way. So happy anniversary!
Congratulations!
Yeah, she's at gymnastics with the kids, so that's why I'm doing this.
Parent life, come on.
But it's okay. So Tolbert had 1 year to become an NFL player, and all the reports are, paraphrasing things like, "Oh, it actually looks like he's an actual NFL player, not trying to learn how to be an NFL player." And you see time and time again, Tolbert's making really good catches out there, and this guy's got to be dirt cheap. He's probably out on waivers right now. Like people have probably given up on him a long time ago, and probably rightfully so. I'm not saying this year he's going to be anything special, but like he's building something. And we have Brandon Cooks on a 1-year rental, probably Michael Gallup coming off of ACL. Who knows how long he's going to be there, but like there's a really good chance that Tolbert might be wide receiver 2 next to CeeDee Lamb starting in 2024. It's not too crazy to think, given what he's been showing, but just something out there. If you get him cheap, get him for a 4th, get him off waivers or something. Yeah, I'd go out and do that.
Yeah, I could see his value rising from a 4th round rookie pick or something, because I think really optimally, ideally, he ends up being like the 3rd wide receiver. I don't think he has wide receiver 2 NFL ability, to be honest with you. That's just me personally, and I think he does have a few obstacles in his way. I mean, Brandon Cooks, he may be a 1-year rental. He's been a 1-year rental for half the teams he's played for, but he could be good enough. And if they have some success this year, they might want to keep that together. And then you got to think that they want to keep at least one of Cooks or Michael Gallup. And if not, they're going to bring somebody else in, right? That's talented, likely more talented than Jalen Tolbert. I just want to run through real quick what I said about him from a film perspective in 2022. So just in general, he was below average in almost every aspect, from like separation, route running, hands, elusiveness, like all categories. It doesn't help for sure that the first target I watched was a clear drop off a slant, like just nobody even near him. But regardless, drops were a recurring thing that came up in his tape. Concentration drops, not just contact, but okay footwork at the line, slow off the release, doesn't get a ton of separation. Routes are a bit careless. Size provides natural separation at times. Will win some contested matchups as a result. No real burst or explosiveness whatsoever. Lack of yak ability. Not much elusiveness. No broken tackles or lateral quickness. Good blocker. Profiles as a one-trick pony type that may not get much play in the league without major improvement in all aspects. So maybe he's made a big jump from year 1 to year 2, and he's improved, some of those aspects that I talked about there, but I'm not super high on him, and I wouldn't be going out really trying to have a lot of him in my profile. But I guess on a specific team and specific situations for like a 4th round pick, you could do worse, I'm sure.
Yeah, and just to be fair to the other side of things, Jalen Tolbert, breakout age 21, small school, small guy, average dominator 42.2%, PPR points per game 17.5. Average yards per route run, 2.5, really good. Average routes run per team pass attempt is 2.9, also very good. This is a guy that we had in our model last year that if I removed your film grade, he would have been, a top 5 player in our model. So it's just one of those like analytics versus film type things that kind of like, I don't think he's going to be like this, really, really, really good wide receiver, that everybody's going to be watching drafting in the 3rd, 4th rounds of startups at any time soon. But I think that he does have a chance to be a guy that you could flex for the next 4 years. So we'll see.
I can see him getting there.
Next one, sure. Demario Douglas, another guy that, much like Jalen Tolbert, like no one's really heard of until he was drafted. And even Demario Douglas, like nobody was even really talking to him about him. And after he was drafted, mostly when kind of training camp, he's been getting a lot of hype. So quote was, through 13 days of training camp, Demario Douglas hasn't had a bad one. And I know you're like really plugged into the Patriots. So why don't you tell us about it and what you saw in film?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because guys slip through the cracks all the time. Demario Douglas this year was one of them that I can't stand this. These are the guys that like I was talking about this last year, and I think at the beginning of this year, trying to dig deeper. And I think we did a good job in that. But again, you missed some. They slipped through the cracks. And I didn't even do a film review on Demario Douglas until this week. So I did a quick one, make sure I was ready for this show. But he's been getting buzz all throughout camp. Like over, we drafted in the 6th round. What was everybody's guy? Keyshawn Butte. We drafted him, and Demario Douglas has been outplaying him from the jump, like every single second of camp. And he's just a shifty guy. He's been able to get open against at least the 2nd team defenders. We'll see if he can do that against 1st team. But he's just getting a ton of buzz out of camp. So I figured it's good to talk about him because, some of these late round guys, they do pop for the Patriots. It's unique. Patriots look for these guys in the late rounds, and sometimes they are successful. And this guy does fit the profile of kind of a slot receiver. He's a smaller guy. But I'll just run through what I looked at on tape, what I found on tape, and Uriah can take it from there. So I was actually pretty impressed with this guy. I had to like taper it down. I was like, wait, Patriots bias. Let's tone it down a little bit here. But He shows good quickness off the line. He exhibits some micro movements during routes, which is something you really want to see. You don't see that out of all young players, right? Those the suddenness and those small movements during the route, right? A little raw in terms of technique. He doesn't really drop his hips or use his arms or body to deceive defenders during the route, mainly natural speed and shiftiness. But again, mid-route, you'll see these little micro movements that he's able to kind of keep his speed, keep on his route, keep on his path, and it does, he can evade defenders that way. I don't know if it necessarily deceives them, but it's a natural speed and shiftiness that he can use against his opponent. He has a good whip route against UMass that I was watching. He has a good high point catch against UMass I was watching. He really overcame some poor QB play. He has an okay release. Again, I think he could refine some of his technique. He does show a couple times where he does put multiple moves on a defender during a route. So he definitely, I think he has a plan going into his routes, and he definitely executes it at times. He exhibits some ability after the catch as well. He does have some lateral agility. Slightly stiff though. He's one of those guys almost that's like super fast, but he like leans with his whole body sometimes and not necessarily using, just his lower body to evade defenders. He's an interesting athlete. The one thing I will say though is he didn't get pressed much, like at all, because he mainly played out of the slot. Guys played off him, so he really was given that advantage of just a lot of space on the field. I don't think he's going to get that much in the NFL, but they'll probably scheme him up pretty well on the Patriots with Bill O'Brien if he's able to lock in a roster spot. So he's an interesting player. I do think that he shows some, again, movement during the route, but there's something about his technique that needs to be refined for sure. It's a little stiff.
Cool. Yeah. And to be fair, to get the other side of things, breakout age 21, again, small school guy, average dominator 21.6, not the best PPR points per game, 12.6. Little lackluster there. Average yards per route run 2.7 is really good. Average receiving yards per team pass attempt 1.5. It's a little bit below 2, which we don't really want to see. But here's one thing that is fun, and I'll touch on their reception completion percentage, which is, I think, actually makes the two stand out. But he had 14 yards per carry. Mm-hmm. I think he only had like 8 carries or maybe 10 carries, but it shows that like he could do stuff. But looking at the reception percentage, it was like 72%. And then Tolbert's was like high 50s. So when you're talking about Tolbert's drops, kind of stands out there. So fun anyways. Sure. These guys are getting a lot of hype in camp right now, so it's like, wow, let's revisit. I don't think we ever did like a proper profile on either of these guys.
Yeah, I like Demario Douglas like a lot more than I like Tolbert as a prospect, and really more just from a film perspective. I can't say as a prospect, but on film, I like him a lot more. I think that he offers a bit more. He's much more dynamic, that's for sure, and I think he's the kind of player that both Bills want to use.
Bill squared.
In New England. So yeah, I again, like this isn't a guy who same thing as Tolbert. Most I'd probably pay as a 4th, maybe a 3rd, late 3rd on the right team if I'm a contender. And I just want to have some fun with this and I'm a Patriots fan or something. I'm not really, this guy is not going to, come out and be amazing for your dynasty team long-term, unless you're playing best ball, I guess, which he could be because he has that pop to him. But the 14 yards per carry is pretty funny. I saw that when I looked up the stats and I was like,
oh, okay, cool. You saw it too.
I was like 105 rushing yards last year. I was like, that's interesting. Like, where'd that come from? And honestly, I mean, it's at Liberty, like you said, small school.
Yep.
He didn't do anything really until last year, where he had like 79 catches for like, I think it was almost 800 yards, 6 touchdowns. So he was productive, at an older age, obviously, when you should be productive. So I don't know. I mean, he seems like he could be a player. That's all.
All right. Who scores more fantasy points this year? Tolbert or Demario?
Oh, Demario Douglas. Easy.
Woo! I like it. I'll take Tolbert.
I'm such a homer. We're homers. We're the worst.
Hey, what does it cost you, a 4th to gamble? Yeah. So.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. I think like honestly, those late guys are sometimes the best ones to talk about. Whenever we do content at DFF for well-known players and stuff, it really doesn't get the views or the clicks. But when you do, late round guys, it's like I think Jerome Ford or what's the other guy there? Not even that. It might have been what's the pass catching back that they drafted there in Cleveland? You don't remember what his name is? Felton.
Demetric?
Yeah, Demetric Felton. One of those guys is like one of
wide
the top.
Receiver,
yeah, wide receiver, but plays running back kind of. One of those guys is like one of the top articles at DFF, and it's because people want to know about the guys they don't know about. You know what I mean? So I think going over like Tolbert's and Douglas's, like it seems trivial at the time, and you're like, they don't bring much value. But I think these are the guys who are available on waivers. These are the guys who are available to go get for cheap. So it's worth talking about them for sure, and it's worth keeping them on your radar.
Speaking of guys available on waiver, let's go back to what we had talked about last week with roster cut downs and paying attention to who's getting dropped and all that. I picked up Hunter Henry off of waivers for
In where? What league?
$350, $0. It's a league that's run by Dan.
Okay, I mean, yeah, that's insane. That's
Yeah,
insane.
Yeah, I've never
Actually,
picked up a waiver where I had comments in the section saying, "Hey, good pickup." Like, I was like, "Yeah," like I can't believe he was just sitting there, and I was like, "Oh, I'll trade Durham Smythe for Hunter Henry and see what happens."
absolutely. And I've
But yeah, pay
actually
attention.
been definitely pay attention. I've been actually listening to the Sickos podcast, Legendary Upside, which is it's really, I mean, they do Dynasty and stuff like that, but it's more best ball. I'm trying to think of the guy's name. I have it on the tip of my tongue, but these guys won like the a couple BBMs, and Jacob Sanderson goes on there all the time and stuff, and they're just obviously really good at best ball and winning a lot of money playing fantasy. They were talking about today how Hunter Henry is literally free in underdog drafts, and Gesicki is actually going ahead of him, which is crazy because Gesicki is definitely not going to be playing the majority of the time. And they're talking about in Patriots camp about how the 2 tight end sets aren't working out great. And if there's 1 tight end sets, it's going to be Hunter Henry most of the time. So it's just like it's just a crazy value thing. I actually got him for a 4th in a startup this year. Somebody wanted to trade me for my 4th or something. I was like, yeah, sure. Then why not? Like, that's an easy bet. So yeah, right there with you.
Cool. All right. So this one kind of came up through one of our listener leagues. We had a owner place a pretty hefty bet on, or a bid, I guess, on waivers, and he was like, "Oh, it's cool." He's like, "I could blow it all right now and get my player." And our fab, it re-ups in a couple weeks. And in our Dynasty Underdog listener leagues, we do not do that. We have fresh fob money, after rookie draft and all that when waivers are open, and then that's all you have for the rest of the year. But he was not aware. He thought it got replenished. And I am in a league where it does get replenished like that, but so now he's going to have not a whole lot of fob to work with for the rest of the year, which is fine. Like, I mean, I've been a proponent for kind of blowing it in the first place. It's not redraft. Redraft, like I would never say just blow your fab, depending. But in Dynasty, it's like it's the last thing that, like, for me personally, I want to do is like worry about fucking waivers in Dynasty. Like, our teams are so deep that very rarely you're going to get a guy that's really going to matter. So if there's somebody that's like popping and you're really interested, just blow it, go for it. But he wasn't doing it because of that. He's doing it because he thought he was going to get more fab. So this is, again, this is just Dynasty 101 type stuff. Like, just remember to check the rules again.
Absolutely. This is something I encountered too. It's not just our league mate here that did this. So it's not like we're putting them on blast. I think this is a good time of year to talk about this stuff because we're encountering it, and it happened to him and it happened to myself as well. I was just in a salary free agent auction, salary cap Dynasty league. And there's a lot of rules, obviously, when you're in a salary cap league in terms of, penalties for dropping players and whatnot. So we actually recently changed the rules from if you drop a player at any time, even during the auction, like half of his salary still counts against your cap, right? That was not the case before. I forgot this. There was some comments during the auction that made it seem like it was still what the previous rules were. I didn't go check the rules. I made a drop, and I ended up saying immediately, like, can we reverse this? And I went to the commissioner and he was like, yeah, sure. But I had already said anybody who messes up, there's a $3 penalty for your first one. So you're taking a $3 hit. And I'm like, whatever, it is what it is. But that's way worse than what Riley did. Like, I have 3 less overall dollars on my salary cap for my overall team that, I could get a $1 guy who really matters. Like, those things matter a lot. So, I got to cut that out. But that's way worse than what our league mate did. So, it's just a really, really big reminder to go and review your rules. Anytime you're going to do anything, especially if you're unsure, go review the rules and make sure that you're following them, because the penalties can vary, and they, the consequences can be steep. So you just got to make sure you know what you're doing, and it's always on you. It's on you. Like, that was on me. I'm not blaming anybody else for that. That's on me. I take my hit, and if I had to take the 50% of of the salary and the player goes back into the pool, then it is what it is. You take the L and you just got to roll with it. But that's how it goes sometimes, man.
Good lesson learned.
Yeah, that was a lesson learned. I was not happy with myself. I don't make a lot of mistakes like that, and it really bugged me. But I think it was good to bring up on the show for this.
Cool. All right, I'll let you take this one because this is all you.
Yeah,
I still have not done an auction.
Yeah, you definitely should get into a slow auction league because I can help you out a lot, and they are so much fun, but they do require a lot of effort and commitment. Like in my opinion, if you want to really control the board and you want to enforce your will on the league, like you need to really devote some time and attention to the auction draft, and just it takes a while. The slow ones, this isn't going to end in a day. It's going to be a 2-week thing, probably, maybe longer, So let's get into it. I want to talk about some slow auction tips, art of kind of bidding, art of auctioning. You can call it whatever you want. I'm trying to come up with some terms for all this stuff because I do want to write an article, and I do think I have some good strategy around slow auctions. Now, for fast auctions, a lot of this wouldn't work. I think there's a lot more strategy to slow auctions, so I'm a very big proponent of the slow auction format in Dynasty. It makes so much more sense, and the values, you get real values. It's not like, in a snake draft where you kind of are subject to the round you're in, and there's certain players you're not going to get in the next round. Like, that's not how this is. If you want a player, you have an opportunity to get a player. Every manager gets an opportunity, and that's a very unique setting for fantasy when we're typically used to snake draft. So let me get into it. When you're in, there's a lot of different rules. Typically, though, you have a certain amount of nominations, right? Like a limited amount of nominations, or maybe they're unlimited, but that would be a little ridiculous. You just have the whole board up. Usually it's like every manager can nominate 3 players on the first day, another 3 on the second or on the third day, or you can't nominate more until your nominations are off the board, something like that. There's a limit, right? And that's significant because you can be strategic with your nominations. If you have a limit, that means that maybe they matter more at sometimes, right? Now, say, for example, just very baseline common strategy, nominate players you don't want, right? Like, that's a good way to use your nominations initially. Make people pay for players that you're not going to pay for. Throw guys out there, right? That's a huge one, and that's a very simple one. I think another one is you can hold your nomination. Say you have a certain limit, right? And everybody's used theirs. You have 3 guys you can put on the board at any time right now, right? So you can kind of wait until the board looks a certain way, till you need people spending their budget on other assets, and you can shake up the board, toss a couple high value assets on the board for low prices and make people bid on these guys, right? Like, you can manipulate the board in this way, make people do things that maybe they didn't want to do, spend money they didn't want to spend. Okay, that's one. I call it strategic nomination, if I didn't say that. Next one here is the idle up bid, right? So something you can kind of gauge based on your league is, if you're in a slow auction, it's a long clock, 12-hour clock, let's say, right? Maybe 8 hours, 12 hours, probably typical. If somebody is at a certain price on the clock for the majority of the time, not getting any love, you may know that he's hit almost a ceiling on his price, right? Maybe people don't want to go much further than what his price is right now. They're not willing to spend much more. Okay, maybe you like this guy and you're willing to, or maybe you feel as okay, I can put him up $1 or $2, restart the clock on the bid, right? Because that's how slow auctions work. When you increase the bid to another high bid, it's going to reset the clock to another 12 hours. So it gives everybody opportunity to see it again. It's on the board for longer. They can go take another shot at it. Maybe the player that you just upbid really wants that guy and now is going to upbid again, right? And now you made them spend more money on that player. So I think just keeping a pin on the players that are sitting on the board for a long time, you can make a decision whether you want to upbid them or not, knowing that either one, you're more likely to get that player than not. So if you want them, you just upbid a little bit and you potentially get them because nobody else was doing it. You probably are the last guy to upbid, or your idea is, I'm just going to go $1 and make this guy bid again, force his budget up, right? It'll give me my money back, force this guy to be on the clock longer, other people to make decisions, and you can kind of use it in that strategic way. That's one. I got 3 more here. I'm just going to run through them. Top down bidding. This is huge for me. And I don't know if everybody kind of sees this when they're doing auction drafts or uses it in a strategic way. People might see some of these as annoying tactics, but they work. So I don't really care. But top down bidding, essentially. Okay. So yeah, if you're holding the highest bid with the least amount of time left, there's a significant advantage to that, right? And the reason I'm saying that is because essentially you know how much you're going to spend on this player, right? And he's at the top of the board. There's a bunch of players underneath you. You still have an opportunity to bid on them either before your player is won in the auction or after, right? And I think there's an advantage to that because you can hold your budget until your player is won, then shake up the board once secured. You got to think about this logically. If I'm sitting there with my highest bid on the board at the very top with an hour left, right? And there's a bunch of players on the board with 8 hours left. And I go ahead and I just start using my budget. Oh, I'm going to upbid all these guys. Everybody's going to start getting emails noticing, yo, this guy's like shaking the board up. I got money back. Let me go upbid his guy, right? Let me go upbid his player who's about to be off the board. I have all this money available. He's at $20, $21. Now you're on the board for another 12 hours and we got to wait, right? That sucks. So for me, I'm going to wait until my player's won, not shake up the board, let everybody think everything's cool. And then my player's won. I know for a fact that money is out of my budget, secured player. I know what my new budget is. And now I can go and impact the board. I can change it up, make people, upbid other players. I can make players that were at the top with 2 hours left go to the bottom, 12 hours left, right? Whole bunch more time for me to decide what I want to do because I know most likely somebody's going to upbid a bunch of these guys that I upbid. Usually I'll do it on players I don't want that I know have more room to grow in terms of price point. So that I think is a massive advantage that people don't pay attention to. And they just bid. And when I see that, I'm like, your money's not there. I'm just going to start bidding on some of your guys in a way that makes it difficult for you to do what you're trying to do. Next one here is kind of in line with this midnight management. This is a really, this is a savage tactic, but it works. And I executed it flawlessly in this recent auction. I've done it before in the same league in years past. But what this is essentially, again, like there's a lot of timing to it. It's a 12-hour clock. So if you bid on a player at a certain time, you can line it up in the middle of the night where you're winning a player around 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. when not many people are really checking in on the on the draft board, but you are, right? So the idea is essentially, first of all, again, because I'm paying so much attention to the board, if I have players that are going to be won around that time, I kind of want to be up to see if somebody else upbid me so that I can impact the board again. Because if somebody upbids me, I have a bunch of money, I can go ahead and impact the board. There may be guys at that late hour that are going to be won that I wouldn't have a chance at, right? So that's one. But say you have a situation where your opponent has the highest bid on a player, and they have an hour and 10 minutes until it'll be complete and won at 1 a.m. in the morning, right? And you have a player right behind him at 1 hour and 11 minutes going to be won, right? So you guys are back to back, but his is going to be won right before yours, but you want that guy or you want to impact his price. But you don't want to shake up the board, going back to my previous point, right? You don't want to shake up the board before you're going to win your guy. So there's a minute difference in between these two guys. So if I wake up at 12:50 and I wait till just before he wins his guy, I upbid his guy, it goes to a 12-hour clock again, and I win my guy a minute later. Nobody knows I shook up the board until they wake up, essentially. Nobody had an opportunity to do anything to my bid because I upbid their bid right before mine. Yeah, is this one lining up for you, Uriah? Does that one make sense?
Yeah, no, it's good. I have a very good question from a auction newbie when you're all done, though.
Sure. I mean, I'm actually about done here. Just the last part that I'll say.
It tracks. It tracks with your diabolical way of playing Dynasty. Everything from the startups to trades to holding your league mates' feet to the fire, and it's quintessential Willie Beeman. Yeah,
it's bad.
I'm not surprised.
This one definitely makes me feel bad for the other person because, like, I know like I know it's annoying, but also like I just won the player. I upbid your guy. Like it is so effective, and it helps you so much. It just, if you're not doing it to me, I don't, like, you're missing out. I guess that's how I think of it. And somebody upbid me the day before with 13 minutes left on the clock for a guy. So I don't know if that was strategic or if they just saw it, but I guess they don't know if it was strategic or I just saw it either when I do it. But if you're listening to this podcast, you know it wasn't. So the last thing I'll say is manipulation and control. Manipulate and control. These are like the key fundamentals to managing a slow auction draft, in my opinion. You want to control the board and force others to overspend as much as possible. You want to underspend as much as possible. I keep a sheet and I track and make sure I'm not spending over a certain amount per player, a certain percentage of my cap. There's a lot of things I look at to kind of manage myself and make sure I'm not overspending. But at the same time, that allows me to see how much other people are spending. If I think they're spending enough on X player, and then it allows me to know, okay, I have a range where I can upbid them. And if I win them, I'm okay with that. If I don't, I know that I'm pushing them. I know that I'm pushing the envelope on them, and I can see their salary. And that's another big part of it, is tracking player salaries and looking at how much they have left to do what they want to do, and try to, manipulate it in that way too. But again, I think too many people, truthfully, go through slow drafts just trying to get players and just trying to, like, literally just like, I'm going to nominate this player and I'm going to try to get this player. I'm going to bid on that player and hopefully I get him. I am literally trying to make the board do something I want it to do. I'm trying to make people do things they don't want to do. And I think most people aren't doing that. So if you are doing that, you're probably going to influence the board and you're going to influence other managers.
So good. All right.
What was the question?
Just like a masterclass in auction strategy. So I think one of those things, because I've never asked you or anybody, what does a auction draft board look like? Is this a Google sheet you guys keep track of?
Oh, no. Yeah, I wish.
It's not through any platform, right?
No, it is. It's MFL.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to go to it right now and see if it should still be up. I don't know if there's anybody on the board anymore. But I'll show you. I can show you the completed. I'll share my screen. I'll show you the completed, and I'll show you just the board, which doesn't have anybody on it right now, but it's worth showing. Share screen. Magic. Okay. So also, this was James the Brain started this league a long time ago. That's why he's right here. He passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah,
and
R.I.P.
John Bosch kept this league alive, fortunately for us, it's an amazing league, and it was such a good league. So, but yeah, shout out James the Brain. Should dedicate this episode to him. So essentially there would be players up here where it says no current auctions, and it would show the time it started, the last bid, time left, the bid amount, highest bidder's money left, the current bid, and the player, right? And then down here, you'd select which player you want and submit the bid based on your cap. If I go back and I can go completed auction report, it'll be a similar thing. So you can see when it started, when it finished. This one took like a day. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, but it's on MFL, and MFL does an amazing job with it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, this board is some crazy values. Like, look at like Devontae Adams for 30 and Brandon Ayuk for 25. Like, it's,
what do you
it's
start
a
out
wild.
with? Usually like $100.
300. This is 300.
Okay, cool.
League, but it's also whatever. Like, if you had players on your team already, that would be subtracted from your auction budget, right? So your $300 budget is your waiver wire budget, your auction. It's your entire. It's everything. That's all you have. So you have to be very savvy with it. But either way, one way or another, yeah, that's
cool.
The auction. Yeah, I would highly recommend getting into an auction draft. Very fun on MFL.
I'll see if I could find some degenerates out there that are going to start an auction draft, and I need to get in there because I'm tired of hearing you talk about it, and it sounds like so much fun. And I just never got into it. Honestly, a lot of it I haven't got into it because I don't really know how it works. I didn't realize there's a platform through MFL that like they do auctions there. So that's
Yeah,
cool.
dude. Yeah, no, and if we might be able to find one together for next year. I'll get into one or two more next year, and maybe we can find one. But um, yeah, I just one thing the last thing I will say is like the slow auctions are so much different than the fast auctions. If you just think about it, you cannot apply as many strategic elements to it because the clock is going. We're going right now. It's like we're all auctioning at the same time. We all know that you can't wait. You can't manipulate the board based on time. You can't use that to your advantage, and that's a big part of it. So, yeah. Anyway, that's all I got on auctions.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun article once you come through with it. I like all the things you've named it: your strategic nomination, the idle bid, top-down bidding, midnight management, and manipulate control. It's good. You're onto something here.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's funny, man. Like a lot of this stuff that goes to the articles and videos is like cooked up here,
Yeah,
on
you're
Dynasty
in the
Underdog.
kitchen.
So
Yeah.
So it's I appreciate having this platform to do that and then be able to kind of turn it into more. So yeah, we'll keep a lookout for the article.
Cool. All right, let's hop into some trades, non-trades, and then we'll get the hell out of here. So this one is not mine. It's just one I saw on Twitter, and I thought it was super interesting because I think this kind of encapsulates some of the things that we've talked about as far as getting younger or whatnot for your team. So the trade was Dak Prescott plus Justin Jefferson plus Antonio Gibson for Jalen Hurts plus Kupp plus Connor.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I didn't see that come across Twitter, but yeah, I think kind of what we're talking about and how flat the QB position is, and we love Jalen Hurts, but we also love Dak Prescott around here, and we know how good he is, and we know how great Justin Jefferson is, and that's really where the divide is here for me. And like you said, kind of this is one of those trades where it allows you to get younger as a whole and extend your lifespan as a dynasty team. So I think I definitely take the Dak Jefferson side here. As a whole, I think it's the winner.
Absolutely. Whoever's getting the Hurts side is going to be absolutely stoked that they're getting Hurts. Hurts for fantasy so far has proven to be better than Dak in fantasy. Kupp is really, really good, and he might have 1 or 2 more years left. Antonio Gibson, Connor, it's a kind of a wash here. Like, I don't really care about either player. They're both going to score you points. Who scores more? Who knows? Probably Connor. But the Justin Jefferson edition right here just kind of puts it over the top here. Like, if I had Hurts, Kupp, and Connor, I would definitely trade for Dak, Jefferson, and Gibson for the year. Just to get that young wide receiver stud. Justin Jefferson's about to break records, right? It's insane how good he is. I just thought it's a very interesting trade, and it's just one of those things that I think I would absolutely do. Like, I don't think at the end of the day, going on to 2024, that the team that has Hurts, Kupp, and Connor is going to look any better than the team that has Dak, Jefferson, and Gibson. And even for this year, like the points that are going to be scored, I don't think it's going to be that big a difference at all. But I love these trades, and it's just kind of something that we talk about by getting younger and maybe selling high on players where the points aren't that different, like between like Hurts and Dak or whatever. Like it's pretty minimal between what Jefferson is going to do over the next few years versus Kupp and Connor and Gibson. So that's a lot of like word salad, but I take the Dak side.
No, I mean, yeah, we agree here. I do think though that I think this is a pretty solid trade in general. I think long term, the Jefferson side you want. If you're a good enough contender, that Hurts Kupp side could win you the league this year. So
absolutely.
So it's not like a bad trade or anything like that by any means going the other way, but one of them certainly has more potential to extend your lifespan in Dynasty. You just get a quarterback who is going to likely score similar points per game as Hurts and has some longevity left. Plus you have Jefferson, who is just by far the best piece in this trade, honestly. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So this next one is a trade I made that it came through my inbox. And again, I've talked about it like recently just going through Dynasty, going through rookie drafts and stuff, like how much I've been hating drafting 4th-round players. Unless it's Clayton Tune, which I really like that guy this year. But someone sent me in Console Wars NVS for 2024 4th. I'm like, sweet. I don't really want to pick whoever's going to be there in the 4th round anyway. And I'll take MVS, who's probably going to be, the wide receiver 1 and the Chiefs. I don't think MVS is like anything great, but he's going to be probably flexed out in that league pretty much every week for me this rest of the year. So basically 24 4th that I don't want for a player that's going to score me some points. What do you think?
Yeah, I love this when I saw it. Just the 4th is not going to do nearly what MVS can do for you on a week-to-week basis. Like you said, potentially the wide receiver 1 for Patrick Mahomes. When I saw this, I was like, great job. And I'm surprised that you didn't send the offer. I'm surprised the offer was sent to you.
Yeah.
I don't need receivers in that league. Otherwise, I would go after the other copies. But I might do that in leagues where I'm a little thin at the position, because I think that's great value.
I mean, there's a world we live in where if it was a 3rd, I still might have done it.
Oh, I know you probably would. I think I would push for the 4th, but he's honestly probably going to be worth the 3rd. Like, he had a bad Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure, or at least a tough playoff run, but definitely I think it was a bad Super Bowl. And I think that everybody has a bad taste in their mouth still and just thinks he's trash. But on a week-to-week basis, he can have an absolute monster game.
Yeah. I predict he'll be in my lineup probably, 75% of the weeks out there. So, as a flex, the way that we have it structured in Console Wars, where I could flex as many wide receivers as I want. So anyways, yeah, pretty stoked about that.
Cool. All right. Last one we got here. This was an interesting one. I'll definitely give some explanation for the other side, because it was actually explained to me why they wanted to do it. Interesting thought process. We can talk through real quick, but it was I gave up a 2025 1st, 2nd, and 3rd for a 2024 1st and 2nd. So I paid a 3rd to get the picks a year early, essentially. The 1st and 2nd a year early instead of 2 years down the road, which also offers me, if I'm not mistaken, I have 2 1sts and 2 2nds now in 2024. So there's that advantage too, which to me is just like very obvious to like move picks 2 years away that are in the same range for picks 1 year away, just because you're going to get return on the investment earlier, even if you move the picks. So there's just that side of it to me. But the other manager, their thinking is essentially they're going to try to win this year. So those picks would be at the end of the round, right? They'd be 112 and 212 or close to it. And then it would be a wash at that point anyway, right? Or if it didn't work and they didn't win, then
they have ammo.
Then they have ammo and they can more easily buy up 2025 picks because they're still going to be cheap, right? So they're going to already have already kind of moved their assets to 2025, knowing that if they fail, they can go and shoot for 2025 instead of 2024, which would be a little bit easier and cheaper. So from that respect, it was an interesting idea. Like, I'm like, it could work out for you for sure. But now, like, even if you didn't tell me that, it didn't matter, because my thought process would be, I'm going to try to impact this team somehow to make them worse all year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or so that I get better picks in 2024, obviously, and then my picks in 2025. I'm hoping that my team, obviously, you know how I play. I want to be winning earlier than later. So I'm hoping if not this year, then next year I'm going to be contending, and that my 2025 picks will be later. So we're both kind of playing a similar game, but the opposite game in a way. Yeah. It's a very interesting trade. I don't know. What do you feel about it?
No, I mean, I think this is, the perfect type of trade for the two different situations. If you're going to get a 24, 1 and 2, it's going to cost you a 25, 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's kind of the going rate. And honestly, it might have to cost you a 3 and a 4. But yeah, I like it. I mean, I like it because there's background behind it. There's a reason why the guy's doing it. He's going to push for it. and he knows he has a year or two to kind of make it happen. But he's already preparing because this game's not easy. It's hard. If you don't make it to the show, you have a little bit of surplus here to kind of reload. You don't have to make those picks. You could turn those picks into actual players, which is probably the smarter thing to do. I think it's a good trade. It's not something that, like, I'm not sure if that's something I would do just because that's not the way I play, but there's nothing wrong with it. And I think it's very equal for both of you guys.
Yeah, and it's not something I go out and like. I would go out and send. I wouldn't really go out and send this offer, but I don't know. Like it's interesting for sure. I think both managers, like, or at least the manager giving up the 2024 first, has to have the mindset that this manager has in terms of like dogs freaking out. In terms of if it doesn't work out this year, I can sell the farm for 2025. It's a really interesting strategy and a forward-thinking strategy. Again, I sent him the meme. I was like, well, it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if that works out for him. Because it's a bold strategy. It's very interesting, but it does have some legs to it. Like it has some logic to it. And I think that's what both Uriah and I respect about it. And what anybody listening this to it would respect about it. It's like on the face of it, you're like, why would that happen? But then you listen to it and you're like, there's actually, that kind of makes sense, I guess. Like that does make sense. So,
and there's zero risk.
Yes, there is zero risk.
There's not picks.
Yeah, and there's not much risk. There's for sure not much risk, and he gained a third on top of it, so he did gain an asset. But he did say that he got the idea from listening to one of our shows. It was the last one or the one before. So shout out, love that.
Dude, love that.
Yeah, one thing we didn't talk about, and we don't need to sit on it, but we didn't talk about Kenny Gainwell. He's been the running back one in camp, and it hasn't been close apparently, which is wild considering there's DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny, two first and the second round pick in there, right?
Yeah. So
crazy.
The reports were Gainwell running back one in camp by like 4 times a carry, 4 times the attempts, all that stuff compared to Penny. And you have also Trace Sermon is getting a little bit more play than Penny. So, and
does injuries catching up?
I don't know what's going on there. I have no idea what's going on there. So it's just something to be interesting to see. Is there a chance that Gainwell could be RB1 on that team? Yeah, sure can be. It's possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
I'm not entirely interested in any Philadelphia running back. I haven't been for years. But it is interesting. It's not what I'd expect because DeAndre Swift, I think, is more talented than all those guys. And, Penny is definitely, I think they're better. But, yeah, the fact that Gainwell's getting the play is just something to keep an eye on, I guess.
Gainwell
shares live.
Yeah, Gainwell shares live. He's been pretty good on a per-touch basis for Philly. But I will say, if you want to invest in that backfield, like, I don't think this is going to make this news. Might not even reach your league mates, depending, how much they pay attention. But I don't even think this would make him as expensive as the other ones. And that's the cheapest way to get a part of the backfield. So why not, right? Like that.
That's right.
Yeah, that's definitely an opportunity there if you want to explore it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot. I just kind of skipped over that. But
I got you, brother.
Thanks, man. You're the best. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, man, we crushed the show. I don't care what anybody says.
I know. Y'all gotta listen. We gotta get more listeners. But
we do.
Thank you guys for all giving us a listen. Check us out on Spotify if you can. Follow us on Twitter, Dynasty Underdog, Uriah Dawkins, @UriahDawkins, and @WillyBeeman_DFF. Join our Discord. It's free. It's awesome. We talk about stuff you want to talk about. And we also have a YouTube channel if you're into YouTube. So check us out.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah. Have a good night.
Later.